Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to Coffee with Tea and welcome to our series Men Hurt Too, a safe space where men get to share their truth. I am so excited to be here this morning, to be back. You guys know that I've been on a little hiatus waiting for season 3 to start. So I'm excited this morning and I have a very special guest, Chavez Gibbes. I'm going to allow him to come in now, unmute himself. I am Trey Kearney. I am your host. This episode is being brought to you by Clean Everything LLC, a cleaning company. They do move in, out cleaning, removal of bulk carpet cleaning, post construction, window, steam cleaning, fog sanitizer, and disinfecting. You can find them at CleanNJ2020, CleanNJNY1 at gmail.com. And you can also call them at 862 520-3010. Clean Everything LLC. So I would like to welcome our guest. Hey, Chavez.
Hey, how's it going, everyone?
Everything is good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great.
So first, I'd like to ask you to tell everybody just a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and what you do.
So my name is Chavez Gibbes. I'm from upstate New York. I have Cuban and West Indian heritage, and I am a chef and I consult different restaurants and menu writing and catering, and I do meal prep.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So I always ask my men, because I think this is very important when we are trying to understand the mind of a Black and a brown man, because I know that you have a lot of heritage. So we're going to talk a little bit about that too as we get into the interview. But I want to ask you, tell us a little bit about how you were raised. Talk to me a little bit about your mom, your relationship with your mom, and your relationship with your dad.
So I am from the foster care system, actually. So I do know my biological parents, but I was adopted I was about 9 or 10 when I was adopted. But I did and still contact my biological parents. But I was raised in a very traditional Grenadian way. The father that adopted me was from Grenada, and he was very strict, especially on me. I didn't realize till after, it was just because the potential I had for success and the drive that I had. And I had what's called Asperger's, ADHD, and ADD, which gave me an upper hand when used as a tool, which a lot of people don't understand how to use those as tools, because someone that has those kind of disabilities, our brain is actually moving faster and taking in more information than someone that doesn't have those. So he was very strict on me, you're gonna eat whatever I put on the table. And that's what actually sparked me into becoming a chef, because early on I was forced to try certain foods. There are still things I won't eat, like peas. I don't like green peas to this day. But he allowed me to see so many different types of food and the ability to play with food in the manner of, if I know this flavor and this flavor can mix, and I mix them, it makes sense. So that was kind of my upbringing, very, typical.
What about with your
But
mom?
let the rod spoil the child kind of. My mom was kind of the lesser of two evils. She was more like I'm gonna nurture and try and be more of that, not as rigid upbringing. Even though there was times I did test her, because that's what children do. And I'm one of those people. I like to test her limits.
I love it. See, I just want the people who are listening, the audience that are listening right now. I don't do a pre-interview with any of my guests, because I feel that authenticity is medicine for the soul. To learn about somebody authentically, and because I didn't know you were from the foster care system, one, which is very interesting on how that affected you, and we'll talk about that in 2 seconds. And two, that you're on the spectrum. My 11-year-old son that we were just talking about behind the scenes has autism. He's 11 years old. He's nonverbal, but his body language is extremely loud. So that's very interesting. So how being raised in a foster care with foster parents or adoptive parents, I'm sorry, as opposed to your biological parents, do you think that has some effect on you in any way, and how?
It had many effects, both good and bad. I will say I was very lucky with the family I got, because they were, one, both looked like me. which is very rare at the age I was. Because if what a lot of people don't understand about, and I only can speak from New York because I grew up in Albany, New York, the the small black children that are under, let's say, 10 years old, I went into the foster care system around 4 or 5. They get separated and sent to white families that have no cultural reference to what we would normally know. So I got lucky in that aspect. But as far as the way it changed how I looked at the world was, it exposed me to a life I probably wouldn't have been exposed to and understand. When I say that is, I grew up over in the Buckingham Pond area, which is a wealthier part of town past one of the famous hospitals in the area, St. Peter's Hospital. And all of my neighbors were white, Jewish, wealthy. There was a couple of black families, but for the most part, there was only 3 families that looked like me in that neighborhood, which exposed me to a different kind of culture a lot of times because I understood what a Seder dinner was from a Jewish perspective. I understood like what Muslim culture looked like, and it wasn't as like such a difference where it was a fearful like, oh, I don't know them, so I'm gonna kind of steer away. It was more of a curiosity, is what I was raised to have. Um, and some of the negative of that foster care system, it made me question who I was. It made
Oh,
me realize because like I didn't understand why I was there. And as a child, that's something that's very hard to do is okay, where's my actual mom and dad? Why aren't they here? Why did they give up on me? These are the questions a child's gonna ask. And it was hard because, I'm thinking about all these things and I'm like asking why? And I knew something was wrong because I remember like the day I got like fully, because we had CPS workers around all the time. My biological mom was into drugs and alcohol, and so was my dad. So like I saw CPS workers around, but it was always like they come around for a day or two and then they leave and we continue our lives. And then one night it was like I remember my mom trying to sneak us out the house, and all I had was like my one little teddy bear and a book bag with whatever. Like in your head as a child, it's like I'm gonna grab my toys and like my favorite pajamas and a blanket because that's what you think of. So it's like those are some of the aspects that I always thought of, and having to heal from some of those traumas over the years.
wow. Men hurt too. This is why I do this series, because we're trying to find out. We get into relationships, and a lot of women are in relationships with men that fail, because I don't think it's a safe place for men to feel vulnerable enough to share this type of stuff. Because I feel like if I was dating you, and I knew this, there's a level of compassion and mercy and grace and empathy that I would have. But if you started showing issues of abandonment, or if you started ghosting, or not communicating with me, or giving me the silent treatment, and I didn't know this aspect of your life, I wouldn't know where it was coming from, and I would think that it was directed toward me. So I thank you for sharing this, because we're trying to understand, not only as significant others, but as friends and people we come in contact. Why is this brother acting like this? And I just want to give you all a voice so that people understand. Black men are just not going around hurting people. There's something inside. There's some issues from childhood that may be showing up, and we don't
Right.
give you guys a space of vulnerability, because as soon as you're born, we're like, it's a boy, don't cry, just do it, make sure you're a man up, who cares? So I just wanted to have this
Right.
space. So this is not on my question, but I didn't know your background. So usually I have like 20 questions that I want to ask, but when you express these things and you share these things, because I allow you to lead the conversation, and I
Mhm.
asked you in the back end, is there anything that's off limits? And you said no. So was there a process of forgiving your parents?
It took me a very, very long time. I'm not gonna lie. And I can't say that I fully have forgiven them, to be honest, because so the way I reconnected with my biological mom was I have an older brother named Cadero, and I knew about him my whole life, and just I knew exactly what he looked like and what, because him and I are like the spitting image of each other pretty much. But I was 22 when I learned and met him physically and was able to like put a name to the face physically. And he connected me with my biological mom. I was like, yo, here's our mom. And I went to Yonkers and visited them. And actually, like the relationship I was in at the time ended up causing some issues because she stole some rent money from him. Yeah, that was a whole thing. So like him and I got into it because we have a very similar personality where we're both what you would consider an alpha, and we're like, no, I'm not gonna back down because I know what I did and what I didn't do. I'm like, yo, yes, I didn't have a lot of money, but I'm not gonna steal from you. Like
Right.
I just met you and you're my oldest brother. Why would I steal from you and like ruin that? So we ended up like him and I ended up like hashing that out and like sitting down and talking through it and because we have similar personalities, we get into it all the time. And then with my biological mom, I had to make sure she understood like one, I'm now a grown man. So I no longer need you in that motherly role per se because I'm grown to the point where I have other people that replace that role between some mentors I had, like I call her my aunt, but she was one of my high school instructors, Miss Clark. I had other friends from high school teachers and church members that looked out for me. I'm not really I wouldn't say I'm religious because I don't believe in organized religion, but I believe in religion. So church members and friends and family and mentors that I've developed over the years that took those roles. And like even the mom that raised me, I don't talk to her to this day. I haven't spoken to her in over 3 years. Um, just because like when I see something is toxic now, I don't even feed into it.
Wow.
But I did come to an agreement with my biological mom that I want you in my life. I'll talk to you. I'll visit you. But here's the lines you can't cross. You cross those lines, and I'm not gonna allow you to.
Wow. I believe in non-negotiables too. Like
Yeah.
in my life right now, even with, we just talked, I have a 26-year-old son who's a year younger than you. And I had to set, non-negotiables with him and boundaries. Like these are the things that you're not going to do in my life, even though you're my son. And I always want you in my life. But anything that disturbs my peace has to go because I have to preserve
Right.
myself first. So you talked about Miss Clark, and I just wanted to say thank you to Miss Clark. We need the Miss Clarks of the world so we can have the
Yeah.
healthy Chavezes of the world. Because when I feel like this, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like mothers are the first women to damage their sons. I feel like mothers are the first women
A
to
lot of, and
disappoint their sons. And
unfortunately
we have to
in our
rectify
culture.
that. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry. So unfortunately in our culture, that is very true. And I will say Miss Clark also helped me. She was the first person to recognize that my social anxiety or my lack of social skills wasn't me being standoffish, as a lot of people turned it, because I have an aggressive personality. I go for what I want.
Right.
So that can, and someone with that personality that doesn't talk a lot, because I never felt the need to say a lot of words, is they would be looked at one way, especially as a black male in the public
Right.
school system. So I had teachers like her that understood, no, there's something else. And she teaches early childhood education, but also clothing and textiles and all of that. And between her and I call him my chef dad now because he stepped up and was like a father figure from when I met him in eighth grade. I walked into his class. He was a chef instructor at the high school I went to. And I was just bored because my brother was doing a word ceremony. And I walked into the kitchen like, I don't know what to do. And he put me to work. I'm not going to lie. He's like, yeah, you want to work? Sure. I started doing tulips out of carrots and turnips and roses out of tomatoes. The first day with no experience from the street. So between the two of them, they pushed me and helped me understand that how to use the Asperger's ADHD to hyper focus into my goals. Because there's like one of the tools she showed me was you blindfold, and I do this with whenever I mentor, because I do a lot of mentorship with younger kids, especially Black males that have ADHD and ADD. But and this is a great tool for anyone that wants to try that has a kid within that spectrum. Is you blindfold them and you get 4 or 5 tennis balls, and you throw the tennis balls and tell them focus on where the sound is coming from, and have them call it out. So now they're able to on demand slow their mind down and focus on something in a split of an eye while still taking in a lot of outside information.
This is so good. Listen, God sent you to me. You know what? I believe that there is no happenstance in life, and everything happens for a reason. And I thank HRJ or Harold
Yes,
for the
shout out to him.
introduction. It's always relationships, and I always believe that nothing is happenstance, because that's so helpful to me right now. So if you're just tuned in, you're tuned into hashtag Coffee with T, and I'm T. And this is our series, Men Hurt Too, where men get to share their truth. And this is sponsored by Clean Everything LLC. They do move in and out cleaning, clean out bulk removal, carpet cleaning, post-construction, window steam cleaning, fog sanitizer, and disinfectant. They can be reached at CleanNJ2020 on Instagram, or you can either email them cleannjny1@gmail.com. They have 40 years of experience, and they use the best cleaning supplies during COVID. So the main thing is we want that experience. So Clean LLC, Clean Everything LLC. So let me ask you, you talked about a healthy example of men in your life. What is your goal as a healthy man in life?
So also wanted to shout out HRJR because he was one of those males. So I joined a fraternal organization. It's a social fellowship called Proof Like Social Fellowship Incorporated. And I pledged when I was 18. Freshman year, second semester of school, I pledged. And it put me into that brotherhood that I now had those Black male mentors that most men don't have of color, that are positive role models. But with my goal as a Black man, I have a few goals. Obviously, I would love to be wealthy, but that's not like per se my goal behind the wealth. It's the tool that the wealth brings. So as a chef, I love feeding people. And one of the biggest things I want to do, and I have a goal book that I write in every morning when I get up at 5 a.m. And one of those goals is be able to feed 100 families a week.
Wow.
And then when I open a restaurant, I want it to be able to do what's called a suspended meal. It's a concept that started in Cuba where for an extra $1 or $2 per meal, you can ask for what's called a suspended meal if you can afford it. So instead of the shame of like a homeless person or someone that's down on their luck, begging for money to go get a cup of hot coffee on a cold day, or a hot meal, or like a Danish, to just for a little bit of happiness, because we know certain comfort foods bring that happiness and that sunshine to people. So they have that concept in Cuba, and it could be for a full meal, a side dish, or whatever it is. And I want to institute that into it because for a couple of dollars or more, I know, and I might not even have to tell people that's what I'm doing with it. I can just add it into the cost of the food and just have people coming off the street, because I've seen it work in New York City at a place I was working at. I interned there, and I brought up the idea to the owner, and the owner was from Guatemala. And he was like, yeah, I heard of that back home, let's do it. And within a week, and of course his like rich white collar lunch crowd didn't like it at first. And then we invited those same stockbrokers to sit and talk to these people and ask them how they got where they are. And they realized a lot of them was like a freak accident, or something happened, or like something triggered a downward spiral that got them there.
Wow. If you just tuned in, this is Chavez. Let me just say this about this young Black brother right here. Our men are getting a bad rap. I just want to say, for a 27-year-old man, I'm so proud of you and all that you're doing. If nobody told you that, this is a young brother from the foster care system, and who has used that to catapult into great things instead of using it as an excuse to fail. So I'm just so proud of you.
Yeah, my mentors wouldn't allow
you said you have a goal book. I just want people to understand that Black men sit at 5 o'clock in the morning and they write down their goals. They have a dream and they have a plan. Because like I said, I want people to understand our brothers are not just sitting around because the media exposes those who are not doing what they're supposed to do, but there are actually brothers 27 years old who are living the dream, who travel, who are chefs, personal chefs, who can cook, who are stylists, who are doing amazing things. So you are mixed Afro-Latino. Has
Yeah,
that made your struggle easier or more complex?
a little bit of both. Certain rooms that allows me a voice that I wouldn't normally have. Um, and when I say a voice I wouldn't normally have, it's I can't really speak on the whole subject because of litigations,
Right.
but it allowed me to be targeted because as a Latino, there's certain crowds I'm not supposed to have a voice in. One of those crowds is white Republican men that would be considered Trump supporters. As an Army vet, they listen to what I have to say. And they listen more keenly because they're like, wow, he had a much harder background than I. Yeah, I'm a poor white farmer, but I didn't go through any of what he had to go through. My only struggle was lack of funds. It
Right.
wasn't a struggle of lack of access. It wasn't a struggle of I don't know where my real parents are. And all these different things that I've been through that allowed me to have some of my closest brothers are like my friend Austin, and he's in Nevada right now. He's a white kid, and when we were in basic training, he never saw a black person in his life, physically saw a black person in his life. And he was put in a squad of 7 where 6 of us were black men from Baltimore, Brooklyn, Albany, Chicago, Oklahoma City, some of the roughest parts of the country. And he's like, wait, we're the same.
Right.
If he didn't have access to us, he wouldn't have that. But
Wow.
going back to being Afro-Latino, it also gave me an identity and it gave me an understanding of who I was and something to research. So my last name comes from my adopted family. Fun fact, I look exactly like, so if you put me, my biological father, and the father that adopted me together, it looks like the same person from 3 different time frames. I don't
Wow.
think that was a coincidence.
No.
So my last name is Gibbes, which is Scottish royalty. I have the coat of arms on a sword hanging up right now. And when you research the last name Gibbes, it comes from the last name Toledo, originally in Spain, which was one of the major players in the Spain conquistadors. And when you trace it back further, it goes to Scotland, Northern Scottish kings from Viking time frames, which I explained to a lot of people that Vikings weren't the white pagans that people believe they are because of media. Because if you look at the size, look at the shape of a Viking ship and the shape of the Egyptian papyrus ship. And then also look at the size of the average Viking. They're said to have bronze skin, long woolly hair that is dreaded and be 6 feet tall. There's no Europeans that large with that color skin in Norway, Scotland, Greenland, Iceland at the time. So they
Right.
came from northern Egypt and spread from throughout the lands. Same thing when the Vikings came to America. They were here hundreds of years before Columbus.
Wow. I'm loving this conversation because I promise you, the world is learning that our brothers are well educated. And our topic today is the power of overcoming boundaries as a Black man. And you have overcome some incredible boundaries. Do you think that Black men are born into obstacles, or are they now, some of them, using it as an excuse to fail?
I believe a lot of them are using it as an excuse. And one thing Harold Reed taught me was excuses are tools used by those that refuse to just move forward.
Whoa.
So, yes, it's going to be a harder life 9 times out of 10 for a man of color. that does not mean it can't be done. It does not mean without focus you can't achieve something. I posted a status on Facebook earlier today when I was on my 5 a.m. call, and it was push. I forgot what the title was. Progress until results happen.
Right.
Something along those lines.
Right.
And no, it's pursue until something you get where you're going, pretty much. And I learned that today, but I've been doing it for years. Because everyone keeps saying, yeah, you have to attract what you want into the world and what you off affirmations, which is true. But if you put no action behind that, you're just sitting on your couch into the distance and nothing's going to happen because you didn't get up to do the work necessary. Like, I could say I want to be a great chef and become a private caterer and work in $1 million yachts and consult restaurants and write menus. But if I don't go and learn how to actually cook, how to pursue this, nothing's going to happen. I'm not going to have the skills to do so. It just doesn't happen that way. I also am a stylist. If I didn't research that, there's no way I could do it. If I don't go out and meet people in the industry, there's no way for it to happen.
Right. Not to be so churchy, but the Bible says faith without works is dead. You could pray and believe and write down stuff, but if you ain't moving your feet, nothing's going to happen to you. What has been your biggest obstacle and how did you overcome it?
Lack of faith in myself.
Whoa.
Yeah. So at times, well, it's twofold. I would say lack of faith in myself, and I kind of drowned at times in my own success.
Oh.
So because I'm 27 now and have been so success driven, at times I would get somewhere and I'd be so young and not know what to do next. And I kind of spiral into this mindset of what do I do next? Why am I here? Kind of thing. And you become lost almost. And you don't know what to do next because you're young. You've achieved what people twice your age haven't even done.
Right.
Like, I'm 27 with well over 15 years of experience in the restaurant industry.
Woo. That's a lot.
That's how early I started working in restaurants. I used to get dropped off and picked up because of New York State labor laws. I could only work 3-4 hours. And at first I was just a dishwasher. And one night I was working at Vietnam Italian restaurant. I still love this place to this day because they give that opportunity to a lot of young people. And they're like, you want to work? Sure. You start as a dishwasher or bussing tables, and then the opportunity will come. So one night, washing dishes, one of the line cooks didn't show up because he got drunk. And they're like, hey, you want to learn how to make chicken parm? Which was one of my favorite dishes on the menu. And I'm like, sure. They're like, all right, fry it till it looks like this. Here's a thermometer. You want this temperature. Put this on top, put it in the oven, and tell me when it's in the oven. So that's how I got started working a line as a line cook. And they saw how fast I was moving, how quick I picked up on stuff. They're like, you want to be a line cook? So at first I was the dishwasher and one of the line cooks. And then I started making desserts. Then I started doing salads. Then I started making breads. Next thing I know, I'm one of the cooks there. And
wow.
I'd go to school, come back, work. I'd be away for college, come back and work.
Wow, consistency. Wow. And that's the food that you be putting on Facebook, I'll be like, I'm getting ready to drive to his house. Like, listen, yeah. I'm like, are you like, anybody want to come for brunch? I'm like, hello, like, what's the address? Inbox me because I'll come and be the taster because all of that looks amazing. You are very gifted. What advice would you give to younger men or older men? Because a lot of older men, I'm learning, because I'm 51, and that age area are struggling because they didn't have the same opportunities, or I should say, they didn't have the same mindset as the younger brothers that are coming up now. So what would you say to the younger men who are listening, the younger boys, and as well as the older men who think it's too late?
It's never too late, one, and it's never too early. That's the first thing I will say. The second thing I will say, especially to the more older crowd, is that yeah, you didn't have access to the technology I had access to. I watched the internet go from dial-up to smartphones, and because of my age, and it's just like the kids underneath me are able to do things with their phone that I wouldn't think of. It's just because you're born into that technology, it's easy for you to maneuver.
Right.
But that doesn't mean it's not impossible. Use YouTube, use these resources that are now available, reach out to younger. And the one thing I will say about a lot of older Black men is they're too prideful to listen to us younger because they're twice my age. I've had that happen as an executive chef. My first executive chef position, I was 19. And one of the line cooks, she's like, I've been cooking for 21 years, longer than you've been alive. And I'm like, but yet I'm doing better than you. But yet
Wow.
I'm your executive chef. Why is that? If you've been cooking for 21 years, why are you stagnant? And that's the
Ooh.
biggest thing that we have from my generation, the millennial generation, is that we saw the stagnancy, we saw ways around it, and we excelled. We found that niche and excelled.
Mm. I,
So being willing to take advice from younger people that are where you want to be and being humble enough to understand that that's ego talking and not reality. And then same
wow.
thing for the younger generation. Like, you also have to be humble enough. Like, I have over 300 records and a record player and a cassette player because I understand the history behind certain things, that this wouldn't be here if it wasn't for this. Like, if those older men in the 50s and 60s didn't fight for certain things, I wouldn't have access to what I have.
I love you
So
so
you
much.
also have to see the double-edged sword in things too. Whereas they couldn't have access at times because they had more important things to fight for: voting rights, equality. So a lot of them are stuck. They're like, well, I'm 60 years old and I don't have anything I wanted. Well, you're also fighting for an entire generation at my age. And the fight's still going. Let's be
Yes.
real. It hasn't ended. We just have more leverage because of the power of social media.
Right. Right. Yes. I love you so much. Listen, to the older brothers who are listening, listen, it's okay. It's okay to get help from the younger men. I had to learn this too. Listen, I'm telling you, and it's nice to talk to you because of our age difference. It's nice to talk to you because technology is fearful for older Black men or older
Oh,
people.
yeah.
I should say it's a fear of clicking the button because I'm just getting to the point where I'm not afraid to push the button now. I'm like, okay, everything's not going to get wiped out of my computer. I can't have 5,000 pieces of paper on my desk. So I have to implement these things, but there is a fear. But I, like you said, I want the older Black men to listen. Let go of the ego. The younger Black man can help you as well as
You
you
can
can
help
help him.
us. Because
It's,
there's certain things I still go to the older brothers for, like when it comes to relationships. I've never been married. I've never been in a long, like what would be considered a long-term relationship, like a 5 relationship. So if I move in that, if I try to move in that manner, I have to ask someone that's been there.
yes,
Like,
successfully.
I've had a lot of, and I had to talk to some of the older men I know because I'm like, why are women so intimidated by me? And they're like, well, young brother, you have things that most women use as a control mechanism that they can't control you with. You have success. You can cook better than most women. You're not sexually driven like most men.
Right.
So they don't have any way to really leverage themselves other than who they really are, which a lot of people are scared to face who they are because they don't look in the mirror and say, okay, here's my toxic tendency. Here's how I need to change that and work on changing those things. Because no one's perfect. We all have toxic tendencies. Mine is I don't have patience
Right.
because of what I know I offer. I don't allow, especially women, to say, "Oh, you have to do it this way." No, I don't. Because let's be real, let's just look at it from a numbers perspective. Straight black men that are single with no kids.
Right.
The numbers are 9 to 1.
9
Now,
to
you
1.
limit that to number that down to making more than $45,000 a year, which is the average. Now it's 15 to 1.
Wow.
That's just in the United States. That's not even global.
Wow. So we're
So
almost to
numbers
our
are in my
time.
favor. So I don't
Yeah.
have to settle for anyone.
Okay, brothers. Listen, ladies, the brother said they ain't settling no more. Now, I got to look around on that one. The brother said, we got ourselves together, so we don't have to settle because, women are taught, don't settle for less, don't settle for this. Men are not necessarily taught that.
Yeah.
So brothers is out
It's
here
a
doing
double
really
standard.
big things.
I get into a lot of Facebook debates because of my viewpoints on that. Because I posted a meme a while back, and I was called misogynistic for it because I said, if you look at it from just an open mindset, a woman forcing a man to keep a child he told you up front he did not want, and look, let's say you guys took every precaution, use condoms, use birth control, spermicide, everything, you still have that child. Because I'll be honest, my sister, she has 2 children. She's on birth control, spermicide, condoms, still has 2 children.
Right.
Is
Right.
it not 100% effective? We all know this. I said that is the same as a man forcing a woman to have a child that she's not ready for. I said it's the same thing, and that's called misogynistic because they're like, oh, the woman's risking her body to keep that child, or she's risking the emotional aspects of having an abortion. I'm saying, and I said, that's not what this is talking about.
Right.
I'm talking about it from a very simple aspect of they're the same evil in different perspectives. Because
Right.
that man said, I understand you have to go through the process of having a child, but I'm willing to keep it and I would like you to keep it. Versus you holding that child against him.
Right. Wow. That's a whole nother platform that we probably need to get on to have these conversations. But these are real conversations, and that's why I do this Men Hurt Too and give you a safe space to share your truth, because we need to have these conversations to have healthy relationships for our up and coming generation, to have healthy relationships. And we all have different perspectives because we all grew up in different lenses. My house was totally different than yours. You went through the foster care system. There's some things that you may view differently just from that. So for me, I always tell people there's no right or wrong.
Right.
I'm not wrong because
it's
my
all
mother,
about your own perspective of what works for you.
right. I'm not wrong because my mother floured the chicken in the bag, right? And you're not wrong because your mother seasoned the chicken in the flour. Some people put the seasoning in the flour, and then some people put the seasoning on the chicken. Neither one of us is wrong because your mother seasoned the flour and my mother seasoned the chicken. So we got to get to that point where we all grew up in a different perspective. So we have 4 more minutes. So I want you to tell everybody where they can find you first, and then I want you to give a final thought.
So I am considered the bearded chef on Instagram, TH, and then the number 3, bearded chef. Instagram, and I'm Chef Gibbes on Clubhouse, Gibbes. Facebook, I'm just Chavez Gibbes, spelled the typical way. Just make sure you spell Gibbes, Gibbes. And I'd say the final thought is live within your power.
Live within your power. I love it. So thank you so much for your time and your talent. I really appreciate you. And I try to be mindful of everybody's time and just do 45 minutes. But I would love to have you on again because I think your perspectives are so mind-opening for those who have closed minds, because there are a lot of people, and I always want to bridge the gap because, like I said, I have a 26-year-old, and sometimes we just butt heads because I'm like, yo, I didn't even raise you like that. Like, what are you talking about? Like, where did you even get that from? So, it's hard to have that conversation with him because he's my son, but to have the conversation with you, is a little bit easier because we're not attacking each other, and I didn't raise you, as so to speak, to say this is what you were taught in church. You know what I'm saying? So me
Right.
and him butt heads, but I think that there is a gap that needs to be bridged between the millennials and the other older generations, because there's a fear for the older generation as well as there's a fear for the younger generation, and then there's a level of arrogance of both. So we can't get to where we because of ego and arrogance, when if we came together, especially as Black people, we could change the world. So again, thank you. If you just tuned in, you tuned into hashtag Coffee with T, and I'm T. I'm here with Chavez Gibbes, the chef above all chefs. If you want to find him, he just gave his Instagram information. Please support him. If you have events that you would like to have a personal chef at, we got to support each other first. This was brought to you by Clean Everything LLC. You can find them on Clean NJ 2020. cleannjny1@gmail.com. They have 40 years of experience. You can also call them for their services at 862-520-3010. You can reach out to Nasia Gregory, and we will see you again next Monday for hashtag Coffee with Tea, Men Heard Too. Remember what I tell you at the end of all my broadcasts, you deserve the best. Yes, I'm talking to you. You deserve the best. Now go get it. Peace and blessings. And remember Psalm 147:3. He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. Psalm 147:3. He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. Thank you so much. I really love you. I appreciate you. And I wish you well.
Same. Have a good one, everyone.